Alright everyone, welcome back. We're going to be continuing on through our run through of my suggestions for modding. And so hopefully in this one we're going to go over modding for the two biggest types of primary weapons, which are rifle type or shotgun type. This is not saying that they use, so there's like 6 or 7 types up here, but they will either use the rifle mods or the shotgun mods. So, pretty simple. And we're going to be using the Bratton Prime, because that's the Bratton I have, but it's also the starting rifle of the game that you can choose as the Bratton. So it works well as a foil for this. And we will be using, for the shotgun, we will be using the Boar Prime. Because again, it's one you can get very early on, Master Rank 2 according to this, and they drop from a bunch of enemies. And obviously, again, the Boar Prime is what I have, but the principles will be the same. So we're trying to build some principles here. Okay, so for the Bratton Prime, we are going to skip whatever nonsense I have here, because that's what I run with. And that's not with this. Ha, cool. Okay, so we'll knock things off. So basic start here. These are 4 mods that work with just about any of the weapons that you can possibly make. These are the base versions. There are various other versions of them that do other things better or tangentially the same. But these 4 mods, Serration, Split Chamber, Point Strike, and Vital Sense, are a good basis for building damage with any of the rifle type weapons, the weapons that use the rifle mods. Serration is providing just flat damage. So it's taking your, whatever the base amount is up to 4.3, 52.2, whatever. Split chamber is affecting your multi-shot. This is how many bullets are fired, or number of damages is fired per shot. So it's actually the number of bullets you're firing. It really is, which is each a different damage instance. So with a 2.1, what that's saying is that for every 2 shots I take, or no, for every 10 shots I take, I'll have an extra one come out. That's that 0.1. It's kind of weird. But basically, you're firing 2 shots for every 1 pull of the trigger. So your bullet count goes down by 1. This will count. It'll count for 2 bullets when you actually hit the thing, though. Less important on rifles, unless they're a odd type of rifle. More important on shotguns. Especially the shotgun we're going to be showing later. But that's kind of multi-shot. Point strike is critical chance, obviously taking our 12 to our 30, which 150% chance that equates pretty good. And then vital sense, which is taking our crit damage by 120%. Something to note here, though, I have a mod that is modifying. I have something that is modifying this crit damage. Normally, here we'll actually back up for a moment. So I am getting extra crit damage from. I'm getting extra multi-shot and crit damage from this right here. From a special thing on my gun. So this increases the base multiplier by times 3. So normally it would be 4.4 is what the upgraded version would be. So 4.4 instead of 3.4. Something in that range. Anyways, not really important. Don't get tangented. We're trying here. Anyway, so with these 4, you're covering the basic things of your weapon. Now, in cases of weapons that don't have a high crit chance, or you're not planning on crit chancing with, which are some weapons in the game. Some weapons in the game do not like to crit. Like, when they were made, the developers at DE were like, we don't want this gun to crit. So we're going to lower the crit chance to just about 0 to make it really hard to crit. And then they'll give it an insane crit damage count. Because they're like, if it does crit, it'll be nice for someone. So, and there are some guns that are like, this gun has almost no status chance, but a lot of crit chance. So it's more leaning towards a crit build. That being said, you can build a gun however you want. However, it is a lot easier to lean in to the stats, of this is more of a crit gun, this is more of a status gun. Off the rack, this is more of a status gun, but because it has just enough status and crit, it works out okay to be a hybrid gun. So, from these four, if you have enough room, obviously, this gun has been formatted multiple times, so there is enough room with fully equipped versions. If you had enough room to complete it, though, the next step is adding elemental mods. So that would be like Infected Clip, Stormbringer, and Hellfire for toxin, electric, and heat damage. And then I think it's cryo rounds. Cryo rounds for the rifle style mod weapons. It'd be cryo rounds. So those are your straight elemental damages. They don't do anything to modify your status chance. There is a popular set of mods referred to as the 60/60 mods, colloquially. And that is high voltage, malignant force, rhyme rounds, and thermite rounds. And what these do is they give 60% of the element, so cold for rhyme rounds, and then 60% status chance. That increases the chance for one of these statuses to proc. And each status has a different status effect. So for impact, it says damage of efficacy. That is basically, what is this damage good against? In the cases of impact, it's good against Anarch, spoilers, Grineer, Kuva Grineer, sort of spoilers, and Scaldrip, super spoilers. And then it says this aspect impact causes the target to flail backwardsly temporarily, with repeated shots increasing the size and duration of the stagger. For heavy units such as Eximus, it also lowers the Parazon Mercy kill threshold to 80% of total health with multiple stacks. So impact damage can be super useful for making Mercy kills easier. That's why a lot of shotguns also have impact. So you can find out what the different statuses do and use to build that. That kind of brings me to, I guess, my idea of how I build weapons. You can build weapons hyper-specific for a single faction or in a generalist way, or somewhere in between. I like the generalist path because that means that I'm not having to change out my weapon config up here or when I'm in mission, because it used to be really hard to do that. Now we have, I'll go to navigation real quick. So if you haven't noticed already, when you're in a navigation, you have this little drop down. This didn't really exist in the way it does now. Where you have the ability to swap, upgrade, which takes to the upgrade screen, or choose a config. That wasn't really a thing. You used to have, still do have, loadouts, where you could just switch to a different loadout, and that was how people did it. So being able to change on the fly like this is super helpful. But going back to the arsenal, and back to our Rat and Prime. So that's kind of the idea, though. You can make your configs more hyper built for different weapon damage, or I have what I refer to technically as my anti-armor, which is generally use malignant force and high voltage to get corrosive, and then thermite rounds, which gives me corrosive, which is great against the Grineer, and then heat, which is great against the infested, and then slash is good against infested and armor. Impact, like, it works out pretty well. There are other versions of this build that also include magnetic capacity for magnetic damage, or the radiated reload for the radiation. Those are two really handy mods that came out within the last couple of updates, but they also drop really often, so they're not hard to get a hold of. Anyways, but that's kind of, you can still see I still have Serration Chamber. I have Vigilante Armaments for more multi-shot, because why not? And then I have Hammer Shot, which is a harder to get one that gives me both crit damage and status chance. So, and then I have something else to play off status chance. So my crit chance actually goes down super low comparatively. but I have a lot of other things working that make it so I'm not worried about that crit chance being low. Mainly also the fact that um, the last evolution here, shots fired with a crit chance, it's less than 50%. So I have to keep my crit chance under 50 in order to get that extra 3 times. So, not a huge deal for me. It works out well for what I have the build of. But that's, again, I took it from a humble build and a regular Bratton, and I've got a lot of upgrades in this because I like using it. It's a fun gun to play around in. But I still follow this same basic path. Now, if you're building a weapon not for crit chance, you don't need either of those two. Instead, you really kind of want to lean into a couple of other ones. So you're looking to do status at that point. So things that are 60-60 rounds are really helpful at that point, just stacking as many on. And then another really useful one, again, rifle aptitude works great to just stack on status chance. Continuous misery can be used with certain builds. It's not a great choice. I would rifle aptitude or rifle elementalist is not a terrible either. And then kind of it's just there's a bunch of random ones you could use to add to it. You could also use just the flat damage ones. Your flat damage of Hellfire Stormbringer and Infected Clip without having to worry about status. Again, it's if you're building for status instead of building with some crit in mind. So, and then like a good arcane if you're getting that point. If you're aiming for heads, Deadhead is really good. If you are using a more spray and pray primary, Merciless is great. Primary Merciless because you get for each kill you get extra damage. And if you're more of a slash and shoot person, primary dexterity is a good choice. Generally, I run with primary dexterity unless I'm on a more precision gun, and then I do deadhead. Or I plan on only taking headshots, kind of like with this gun. Anyway, so that's kind of the basics of the rifle mod style guns and a basic setup for kind of how I approach modding them. So get to bore. For shotguns, it really follows a similar model when we're talking about the ones. I bet I just sent that. Yeah, I did. Of course I did. Okay. Put Ravage there. Okay, so again, if you're going for a crit build, this follows basically the same plan. Point blank is our damage, Hell's Chamber is our multi-shot, Blunderbuss is our crit chance, and Ravage is our crit damage. And they're all kind of lower comparatively because shotguns are dealt per projectile. If you know it's per damage per projectile, our crit's real high with this build. This weapon's a decent status to crit chance hybrid build anyway. But our multi-shot is a lot more important on a shotgun, especially one like this that's a shrapnel style shotgun, because our damage is coming in per projectile. So, we're doing, this tiny bit. So our total down here is rated for all of our projectiles hitting our target. So that's also why the number can be significantly bigger compared to a weapon like a rifle, because if we're doing status by projectile, we're counting all our projectiles hitting the target, which if we are close, works great. If you're farther away, you're going to see some discrepancy between what damage you're seeing and what you're actually hitting on target a little bit. But on the modding side of things, fairly similar. And again, there exist those same 60-60 mods for adding where are they at? There. For adding status and status chance. And there are some other ones. So magnetic strafe we have for the magnetic and that, and then there is a There's fire rate. Like, you can add a bunch of things from that point, and there are some rare ones. And again, basically a lot of the same things you do to, the rifle style guns. You can do the same process. Same multi-shot damage, crit chance, crit damage, or stack status. Maybe some things to make you fire farther. That's where your Exilus slot comes in, which you need an adapter to unlock. But Fatal Acceleration is a really good mod because it increases projectile speed, which generally also increases your damage fall off range. Which damage fall off range is only really important to shotguns, because they're the only ones that really have that problem. So, yeah, like you need an adapter to unlock your arcane slots and unlock the Exilus slot. Which isn't really well explained. Never spend plat on them. You can get them for free from just doing quests in world and doing objectives and things. Steel Path is the easiest way to get arcane or adapters for your primaries and secondaries. And Exilus weapon slot keys and things show up often. And I think you can buy them from your syndicates too. So it's a great way to get that. So I think that's about it on my notes for primaries. So yeah, I hope this helped someone. Uh, and yeah, thank you for watching. Everyone just have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye.